Hi, and welcome to another live chapter reading of Spoilsport, a Pierce Brothers Book 2 by Belinda Williams. Chapter 1. Nadia didn't think much of the unlit front porch when she arrived home from her nursing shift late on Friday night. The old, rusted light fittings had already blown at least 2 sets of bulbs since she'd bought the place a year ago, and she knew she needed to get someone out to look at them. "Add it to the list," she muttered as she pulled into the driveway and killed the car's engine. Buying a fixer-upper had seemed like a great idea at the time. Purchasing a house that she could slowly renovate made sense for a single woman on a nurse's salary. A year on, it made a lot less sense. It turned out the quaint old weatherboard cottage the real estate agent had told her had good bones was not only lacking good bones, but good anything else. A big chunk of her carefully saved renovation budget had already been eaten up, quite literally, by termites. She knew it had been unwise of her to purchase the house without a proper inspection, but she'd been so keen not to miss out on it that she might have been a touch impulsive. Not that she'd fallen in love with the place. Oh no, Nadia didn't fall in love with anyone or anything, including houses. But she had dispensed with her usual brisk practicality on this occasion because the stupid old house had felt right. Obviously, it was the last time she listened to her gut. Now she was not only in debt, but she was also living in a house her mother had implied was a dump on more than one occasion. Not that her politically correct general practitioner mother phrased it in those words exactly. "It's got character, Nadia," she often said. With that thought, Nadia hauled her backpack off the front passenger seat and got out of the car. Aided by the glow of the streetlights, she made her way to the porch, observing the 2 faulty lights on either side of the faded green front door that was badly in need of painting. In truth, it needed to be replaced, because what was the point of painting something that was rotten? "Having a day off, are you?" she asked the lights as she got out her keys. Nadia was fairly certain the house was affecting her mental state. What normal woman made a habit of talking to her house? Not that Nadia had ever considered herself remotely normal, but still. She realized that talking to her house wasn't entirely balanced, but maybe it had to do with the place's character her mother was so at pains to point out. The lock on the front door was original and required turning the key a certain way, while the door itself wouldn't open unless she shoved it with her shoulder. It occasionally made her feel like she was breaking into her own house. Nadia dropped her bag inside the front door with a dull thud. "I know it's not your fault that you're rotten," she addressed the door. She was glad it was after 11 at night and no one was around to witness her insanity. Nadia flicked the hall light on. Nothing. Shit. Maybe the front porch lights weren't having a bad day after all. Maybe the entire house was. She flicked the switch off and on again, with no result. Nadia swore again, then headed purposefully into the lounge area located off the hallway and tried switching on one of the lamps. Still nothing. With a dramatic sigh, Nadia turned and stalked out the front door, over the lawn that was more dirt than grass, and around the side of the house to where the fuse box was located. She opened the metal door, and it let out an ominous creak. Well, it would have been ominous if Nadia scared easy, but she didn't. The full moon and cloudless night sky added to the eerie vibe, but it at least gave her good visibility as she surveyed the interior of the box skeptically. She glared at the fuse switches, which she knew needed replacing, when she got around to rewiring the entire house that was. "Aha! There you are!" She spotted a fuse labeled lights, noting it was set to off. Something must have tripped it. Potentially the house itself, which she was beginning to think was cursed. The switch seemed like a good place to start, so she reached over to flick it back on. When asked later what had happened, Nadia couldn't be able to recall which came first. The loud crack, breaking the night silence, or the zap to her hand. All she knew was that 1 second she was standing in front of the fuse box, and the next she was nursing a painful backside after retracting her hand in shock and landing on the hard concrete. Nadia was too stunned to swear. She stared at the fuse box blankly and blinked a few times, still sitting, and vaguely registered the distinctly acrid smell of burnt wires. Maybe it was the pungent electrical aroma that brought her to her senses and lit her temper, or maybe it was the fact that this was just another in a long line of insults the house had inflicted upon her. She damn well had enough. Nadia jumped up, ignoring the still open fuse box, and stormed back to the house. Inside, she grabbed her phone and dialed Chelsea's number. While it rang, she flexed her hand, once, then twice, to make sure it was okay. Her fingers didn't appear to be burnt, and there was no numbness or tingling, so she'd live to fight another day. "Nadia?" her friend answered after a few rings. "Is everything all right?" "Are you home?" Nadia asked abruptly, then remembered how late it was. Oops, she tried again. "I need to ask a favor." "Yeah, you know us. We're practically an old married couple now, unlike you. Let me guess. Big night out? Do you need us to rescue you again? I really think you need to try a different pub after the last time. While Tom appreciated the beer you bought him, he really didn't enjoy pretending to be your boyfriend." No, it's nothing like that. I'm at home. I just finished night shift, and I need somewhere to sleep tonight." "What? Has something happened to your house?" The fact that Chelsea would think to ask that annoyed Nadia further. Nothing has happened to my house. It's what's happened to me. The goddamn house tried to kill me. Again. And I've had enough. I think it's safe to say I have no power, so I'm not staying here." And it definitely wasn't going to be at either of her parents, due to the inevitable ongoing commentary about her house's faults, which at this moment Nadia knew all too well. "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" "Fine, if you don't count on my sore bum and my scorched hand." "Nadia, is the house on fire?" Chelsea cried. Nadia registered the low hum of male voices in the background. Stop. One of those voices was bound to be Tom, Chelsea's perfect Mr. Nice Guy, who Nadia seemingly tolerated but secretly had a soft spot for. At least she hadn't woken them up. Being a Friday night, they must have company. "Nadia," Chelsea demanded. "Oh, sorry. No, nothing is burning. I think I'm still a little bit whacked out after the electric shock." There was a stunned silence, and then Chelsea yelled, "Tom, we need to go to Nadia's house now." "Chels, seriously, relax. I'm fine. I work in the emergency department. I think I'd know if I needed medical care. I don't. I just need to get the fuck away from the house for a night. That's all." "I understand," Chelsea replied, but her usually sing-song voice was full of concern. "But it sounds like you've had a bit of a shock. Maybe we should come and pick you up, and that way we can check the place over to make sure it's safe." Nadia scoffed. "Safe? I'm almost certain this place hasn't been safe since the 50s. It's not burning down or anything, mind you. That might solve a few issues." "You do not want your house to burn to the ground. We're coming to get you." Nadia rolled her eyes, aware Chelsea couldn't see her. Her friend was using her teaching voice again, a skill she developed during her many years of working with preschoolers. Nadia knew there wasn't any point arguing with Chelsea when she used that tone, but deep down, she appreciated it. After a long shift at work and arriving home to a booby-trapped house, it was secretly nice that someone cared enough to look out for her. "Fine," Nadia said. "Come and knock yourself out, but I strongly suggest you don't touch the fuse box. Expert tip." "I wouldn't dare," Chelsea agreed. "And we have a house guest tonight, so just so you're aware, the sofa is yours, though." Why didn't you say? I can call another. She'd been about to say friend, but Chelsea spoke over her. We're on our way. Bye. The line went dead. It took approximately 3 seconds for Nadia's brain to figure out what had just happened. She lowered herself unsteadily onto the top step. She wasn't sure if her uneasiness was due to the after effects of her near-death encounter or the horrifying realization about who Chelsea and Tom's houseguest was. Luke Pierce, Tom's older brother, a lying, cheating hulk of a man who excluded the sort of quiet broodiness and seriousness she found irresistibly sexy. It wasn't just his demeanor that was appealing either. With waves of dark hair just past his ears that always looked in need of a trim, and soft, watchful green eyes, he was certainly easy to look at. And that was only his face. Luke had the sort of broad shoulders that compelled women to look twice, made more noticeable thanks to his tall stature and strong build. Yeah, Luke Pierce was difficult not to notice. Nadia shook herself out of her unintended reverie. She didn't moon over guys like this, especially not when he'd almost been her downfall when she'd let a one-night stand go too far. Now, a year later, she would be staying the night in the same apartment as him. Seriously, could her night get any worse? Oh, God, it can, she breathed. Of course it could. Luke was a builder who owned his own construction company. That's why he was often visiting Chelsea and Tom these days. He lived in Sydney, but had a growing clientele up here in Newcastle. No, she moaned, to no one in particular, although she knew it was futile. Nadia knew with a sickening sense of certainty that the chances of Luke joining Chelsea and Tom to check on the safety of her house were approaching 100%, especially since he was a licensed professional. Never mind Nadia's feelings about Tom's brother. She knew Chelsea well enough to appreciate that her friend valued Nadia's safety more highly than worrying about getting her nose out of a joint. With that thought, Nadia groaned again, then put her head in her hands and waited. Chapter 2. Luke studied the weather-beaten cottage with interest as Tom parked in front of it. The flaking white paint glowed in the moonlight, or what was left of it. There weren't many houses like this in the part of Sydney Luke was from. Unlike Sydney, Newcastle had originally been a mining town, and it was obvious this wide, straight street had once been inhabited by the working class. In the last 20 years, though, areas close to the center of the city had been gentrified, and properties like Nadia's were now selling for a good return. Well, maybe not this property. He had to admit it had a certain sweet quality about it despite its rustic exterior. Chelsea, Tom, and Luke got out of Tom's car and closed the doors. You first, Chels, Tom told her. You can tame the beast for us. Luke bit back a smile. Describing Nadia Alvarez as a beast couldn't be more at odds with her appearance, but it did have a hint of truth to it when it came to her personality. I can wait here while you find her, Luke suggested. His brother's green eyes, that were so much like his, glinted mischievously in the dim light. Coward. Luke held up his hands. Hey, it's for my own protection. Chelsea sighed and gave him a reassuring smile. She's not as scary as she seems. Luke begged to differ. Nadia was way scarier. With her sharp intellect, big brown eyes, olive skin, glossy dark hair, and lithe, shapely body, Nadia was an unapologetic vixen. And he'd been stupid enough to fall for her. Tom nudged Luke's shoulder. Come on, I'll protect you. We'll distract her while you make sure the place is safe. Luke nodded and didn't object. Scary or not, it was obvious this house needed work. Lots of it. And Luke's sense of responsibility had already kicked into gear the minute Chelsea had announced Nadia required help. Whether she hated him or not, he couldn't abide by the idea of her being in danger. He followed Chelsea and Tom to the front door, which stood open. Inside, he could just make out old floorboards and original walls with picture rails in the darkness. Nice. although he bet it would be less impressive in broad daylight. "Nadia?" Chelsea called out softly, clearly worried about waking the neighbors. "I'm out the back." Obviously, Nadia was less worried about the neighbors. Luke found himself hiding another smile and trailed behind the others down the hall. The floorboards chorused loudly as they walked, and Luke's interest in the house grew. His specialty was modern renovations because that's what most clients wanted, but he often felt they lacked personality, unlike this old place. They arrived in a compact kitchen, originally, which led out to the back via a rusty screen door. Tom swung it open to reveal Nadia standing in the middle of the backyard, hanging washing up in the dark, still wearing her nurse's uniform. All right, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this chapter reading of Spoilsport. Bye.